Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Lydia Ferrante Roseberry. I'm the minister of this beautiful congregation. And I'm joined today by Service Associate Donna Samani with the Reverend Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout as our virtual musical guest. And of course by our tech ushers, Dave Leonard, Don Price, and Mary Stackpole, who help everything run so smoothly for us. As I say our welcome words today, I invite you to scroll through gallery view if you haven't already done so, and then check through the screens so that you can experience the lovely diversity of this congregation, tuning in from a variety of locations, adding up to a fellowship that means a lot to us, especially in these challenging times. You are welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways you make your living and all the places you are from, you are welcome here. Christian, pagan, humanist, Jew, Buddhist, mystic, Muslim, Unitarian, Universalist, with all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you are away, nor how soon you will return, you are welcome here. And whether you come today with laughter in your heart or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today. I do have a few announcements today, as usual. After today's service, the Social Justice Council is sponsoring a learning session about police reform and school resource officers. Member Catherine Wiley has extensive experience and knowledge on this timely topic. The presentation will be recorded for anyone who is unable to join but wants the information. And the link for joining this session is now being put into the chat, and it will be at the end of the service as well. You also have the option to stay in this Zoom room for coffee hour or join the School of the Spirit coffee hour that you'll see in the chat now and again at the end of the service. My second announcement, are you interested in doing important and personal anti-racism work? Research shows that we're more likely to do things with an accountability partner. Sign up and we'll pair you up with another person who's interested so you can begin today. This isn't a class we're offering, but rather an opportunity to do deep and personal work. You will receive a partner and a list of resources you can learn to grow as an anti-racist. Hannah Grosser has started this program and is pairing people up. Her email is going into the chat right now, and I deeply thank you, Hannah, for offering this opportunity to us. My third announcement is that we are continuing to monitor the implications of COVID-19 on our congregation and to adapt. That could be our middle name these past few years, I think. The COVID-19 response team has decided that there will be no meetings inside or outside of the fellowship for at least the month of July, except for events that are sponsored by a staff person. Those are events like our children, youth, and family gathering that the School of the Spirit staff will be offering. Our staff need a break from the planning and coordinating. Many of us are on vacation, and we just can't at this time have folks in and out of the building without some sort of a planned, coordinated effort. And in addition, I want everyone to know we're following public health orders and not permitting any fellowship activities anywhere inside or out of your homes or at the fellowship with more than 10 households. So that means that if you're planning something that's fellowship related, that has a fellowship event, we need you to make sure that there are no more than 10 households who will be attending. And I've added a chat to the link, or we're adding a chat to the link to a great Colorado Public Health decision tree for your own activities. And you'll see on the bottom of that the public health order that does talk about this 10 household limit. So this week we're beginning our summer series on the UU sources, which you'll hear more about throughout this service. Next week we'll be joining together with the Longmont UU Presence and the UU Church of Boulder in a special service where we'll take a bite into our Christian heritage. The Moravian Christian Church worshiped together in what they call the Love Feast, a worshipful communal meal. Our Unitarian tradition is rooted in this strand of Christianity. So with this service, you can experience a modern, intergenerational Unitarian Universalist service in the style of the Longmont UU Presence Dinner Church. Bring your own brunch. And this service will start at 10:15 to accommodate the three different congregations and their worship times. And it will be on our Zoom link. If you're new here today, we are so glad you're here and hope that even on Zoom you can still experience the warmth and love of this fellowship. Each Sunday is different here, so please do come back a few times to really get to know us. And now in the chat window we have a link to our first-time visitors page. That page has a link to our visitor information form where you can get better linked into our activities. Or you can email our office manager, Carol. Her address is also in the chat. And check out our fellowship calendar and connections weekly for all the different ways you can stay connected. And finally, if you are new to us, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat because we love knowing who is among us each week. And now if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me as we light our fellowship chalice. And so we know where all of our chalices are, please write in the chat, chalice lit in, and then the name of your town. Join me in our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And now I'll sing our bowl again, inviting you to go deeper into this present moment and to the company of this beloved community.
Good morning. The opening words are a poem from Reverend Teresa Soto, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Oakland and co-chair of the DRUM, that's DRUUMM, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. DRUM is a UU People of Color ministry and anti-racist collective, bringing lay and religious professionals together to overcome racism and transform Unitarian Universalism. These are Reverend Soto's words. I cannot prove to you that we are human. I cannot prove to you that I am a person, but you can hold my hand, cool and dry, while we pray or just breathe, ragged breaths catching on our aching ribs. I cannot prove to you that brown skin is holy, that black skin is sacred, but you can know it, luminous and irrepressible, the tabernacle of your own liberation. I cannot even prove to you that every queer body, every trans and NB body, every ace and bisexual body sings back to the universe its immense generative power of yes. I cannot prove to you with a quadratic certainty that what a disabled body holds is a story of wisdom beyond perfection, like a red sun emerging from behind a cloud of dust. So the answers that I have for a country hacking up a death rattle and a democracy with a wheezing, waxy pallor are about our courage to love, our desperation not only for survival, but also to tread above the worst of our collective nature and to get each other free, unashamed that there came a day when we were willing to risk looking foolish to simply stay together and alive.
Today we're sharing a beautiful piece of music with you. The Reverend Dr. Glenn Thomas Rideout is the music director of the First UU Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and was the lead musician in the 2016 UUA General Assembly, where this piece was recorded and also, I believe, where it debuted for UU audiences. I invite you to listen closely to his opening words and also feel free to sing along.
One of the most powerful ways the church offers us an opportunity to be one with another is through the power of music. David Frazier wrote a song he calls "I Need You to Survive." And I'd like to say that as we endeavor to be a community standing together, affirming the worth and dignity of Black lives, we must enter the songs of Black lives with humility, curiosity, and first, we must endeavor consciously to resist the temptation to colonize it with the changes that make us more comfortable inside of it. If we can be present to Black faith and Black faiths, then in solidarity we might enter into the blessed relationship that allows us to deserve to be called allies. In this sense, sing this song with me with curiosity, with humility, and with joined faith. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. Listen, I pray for you, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to. Let's sing together. I pray, you pray for me. I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with the words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. I pray for you, you pray for me. I love, I love, I love, I need, I need, I won't harm you with the words from my mouth. I love you, I need you to survive. You pray, I love you, I need you to survive. I won't harm you with the words. Sing it with me. Tell somebody else, you are important to me. You are important. Tell two more people, you are important to me. One more time, you are important to me. I need you to survive.
I will say it out loud for everyone with tears in my eyes. You are important to me, and I need you to survive. And by that you, I mean the broadest, widest you that I can imagine, even beyond my imagination. We need one another, beloveds. We need one another. If you're new to the fellowship, you may not know that we have been alternating between the UU principles and the UU sources each summer since 2013. So we've done 4 cycles of each of these. The first 2 times through the sources of our UU tradition, we use them as written. Then 2 years ago, when I looked at the sources, I started to see them with fresh eyes. They were adopted in 1985, with the addition of the sixth source of earth-based spirituality added in 1995. That's a long time ago, even for someone as old as me. 2 years ago, they seem stale. So in my questioning, I played around with them with an opening service like this one in the beginning of July that discussed why we needed to move beyond a sense of tolerance to a place of radical inclusivity where reciprocity and the true benefits of our pluralistic tradition could be reaped by all of us. Today, the sources as they are written remain intolerable to me. And as I've expanded my own understanding of the Eurocentric, heteronormative, cisgendered white image of Unitarian Universalism that they depict, and that is considered simply American culture by so many. So as Don and I were preparing for this service, we decided to lift up those questions and concerns so all of us could be grappling with them. We invited other service associates to be a part of creating a video that you're about to see. And blessings to Deborah Mensch, who actually put it all together for us in this beautiful format. And then following this video, I'll share with you where we are going with the sources this year. Decentering the sources. I'll be reading from the UU sources as they are now stated on the UUA website. They were adopted in 1985 with only minor changes to binary language just last year in 2019. They will be followed by observations of how they fit and don't fit our current cultural context 35 years later. From the UUA website. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. We live out these principles within a living tradition of wisdom and spirituality, drawn from sources as diverse as science, poetry, scripture, and personal experience. These are the 6 sources our congregations affirm and promote. The first source is direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life.
Direct experience allows us to connect to intuition and insight, and to know that our mystical experiences are valid and real, regardless of how, why, or when they arise, even though they are beyond the capacity of words to describe them.
But why transcendence? Transcendence of what? Transcendence to where? This word implies a dualistic understanding of a God up there and the rest of creation down here. Direct experience, including mystical experience, comes in more varieties than that. Rather than in some otherworldly space, these experiences all happen in the here and now, through the medium of human beings.
The second source is words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love.
Prophetic people of all ages have enabled humanity to grow in consciousness and love.
The voices of prophetic people have historically been white and mostly men, until the last 20 years or so of our history. So many other voices have been silenced or ignored. Where are the black and brown voices? The voices of women, of queer people? Where are the voices of Muslims, Taoists, of Hindus and Sikhs and mystics. Who else is not here? Who else has not been heard? Let's go find them and invite them inside to speak.
Our third source is wisdom from the world's religions, which inspire us to our ethical and spiritual life.
There is much written, oral, and experiential wisdom to be found in all religious traditions on earth. Wisdom which has guided and inspired people and civilizations for thousands of years. Much of this wisdom can help to inform our religious practices.
But what are the so-called world religions? Why are they addressed separately? Are world religions something exotically different from our religions?
Shall we cherry-pick bits and pieces that appeal to us from these comprehensive, living systems of thought and practice, and simply plug them into our own culture where it seems convenient and useful to us? Or do we need to look more deeply to try to understand the historical and cultural context of these religions from which we would draw inspiration? In other words, shouldn't we be very cautious that we develop a degree of cultural competency before borrowing? This UU form of religious pluralism requires intentionality. Knowing we can never gain all of the depth of knowledge and wisdom from any tradition, still we must vow to be on that path of learning and to do our best.
Our fourth source, Jewish and Christian teachings which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves.
Yes, these two religious traditions do encourage love and service to others. The other Abrahamic tradition of Islam is also very focused on love and service. So why do we leave it out of this source? And is not love a worldwide, universal human response, regardless of whether one does or does not believe in a higher power?
This source is quite Eurocentric, focused only on the two traditions most common in Western culture. This does not reflect the respectful global worldview we are trying to cultivate.
Our fifth source, humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit.
Our humanist sources help us to avoid falling prey to a faith based only on religious or other doctrines. Faith which lacks intelligent examination. This source centers the human capacity for logical reasoning.
Western science and reasoning have gained great respect and use worldwide. Peer-reviewed research is fast becoming the gold standard for decision-making in all things. Still, we must be wary that our Western science not become the new world religion, closed to other ways of knowing. How might we broaden the scope of our humanism to allow for the wisdom of the emotions, perception, intuition, and compassion?
And our sixth source, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature.
The earliest human religious practices of indigenous peoples were all earth-based. Humans were intimately connected with all life on earth and all landscapes and seasons. Humans sought to understand and find meaning in their world and in their lives and deaths. They created art and ritual to express what they learned, as well as what they imagined about life on planet Earth. Learning more about some of these practices and engaging in them can help us find our way back to our deeply human roots. This will help renew our lost relationship with our planet Earth.
Perhaps more than any other of these sources, we must be careful of cultural appropriation. Earth-centered traditions are almost always those of indigenous cultures which have been colonized.
This source gets close to, but leaves out, the wisdom from the earth itself, unmitigated by human rituals or traditions.
And finally, the sources on the UUA page end with these words. Reverend Kathleen Rowlands said, "Throughout history, we have moved to the rhythms of mystery and wonder, prophecy, wisdom, teaching from ancient and modern sources, and nature herself. In this critical time in history, let us expand upon these sources to include our broadest understandings of sources of wisdom that we can." Well, I hope I haven't completely ruined the sources of our tradition for you. That was not my intention. Well, maybe not fully my intention. It's actually one of the beautiful things of being part of what we call a living tradition. We know that what we write down, what we consider to be our truths, our highest values, are never codified in a one and done way. We're called to remain relevant to our changing world while we honor our history and our heritage. Now that's a dance for sure, to keep what's central to our historic identity, or rather identities, while being able to name the shortcomings and the real harm of previous times and adapt to new understandings. So this summer's theme is called Decentering the Sources. Now, I guess I could have called it Decentering Whiteness from the Sources, as the construct of whiteness is endemic to our times. But while racism is an indisputable root of systemic oppression in this country, I see all of the ways that dominant culture others groups of people and even the earth. So I'm going back to a word from our former intern, AJ Van Tyne. He introduced this word to me. Kyriarchy. Kyriarchy is the interlocking set of cultural, economic, and legal rules and systems that work to keep multiple groups oppressed for the benefit of a ruling group or class. Kyriarchy encompasses sexism, racism, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, colonialism, militarism, you get the idea, speciesism, and all other forms of dominating hierarchies in which the subordination of one person or one group of people is internalized and institutionalized. So it takes, for me, it's the biggest picture of our understanding of how oppression happens. My shorthand for it is talking about dominant culture or domination culture. But what exactly is decentering? To decenter, we have to first acknowledge that the current culture within our denomination and our nation assumes a white identity and is designed almost entirely for the comfort of straight, cisgendered, able-bodied, and white-identified people. Our readings, our music, how we organize our meetings, our buildings, our programs, what we choose to risk for, all meet the norms of a white dominant culture without much thought to who might be left out or even harmed by those patterns and practices. To put this into terms of education theory, there is the explicit curriculum, what is intended to be taught. In our case, what you might hear from the pulpit, from me or one of our service associates or a guest, the policies that might be written up by leadership, the classes we offer, all these things. And in all these things, I hope what you hear is an ideal for universal love and dignity for all, for us to all be on the path of justice making, and for an understanding of the creation, the possibility for creation of beloved community. Then there is an implicit curriculum, It's by what is taught by the environment in which we do our teaching, how power is distributed or held, and by whom. It's the learning that happens by the how we do things that speaks volumes to who we are. And finally, from an educational perspective, there's something called the null curricula or curriculum. Who or what is completely left out, not even in our purview, usually because of unconscious bias. For those who are left out, the null curriculum speaks volumes. Decentering requires us to look at all three ways we consciously and unconsciously model how we expect the world to be. Decentering means a deep dive into who's left out by those patterns and practices, and intentionally including those voices, not out of curiosity or an intellectual exercise, but to shift our perspective or the perspective of power, the perspective and the power dynamics towards those who have been left out again and again. This is how we create beloved community here and now. This is how we tell each other, you are important to me. A few years ago, the UUA created a commission on institutional change to look at these issues within Unitarian Universalism. And they ask us to not just imagine, but to create, quote, a more just and effective system that would center the comfort, safety, growth, agency, and capacity for self-realization for those who are currently most oppressed, which would at the end have a benefit for all. This year, the leadership learning moments for our fellowship board, Committee on Shared Ministries, and Leadership Development Committee will read the commission's report, which is called Widening the Circle of Concern, with a task of honest reflection and implementation for change in our congregation, so that we may become the more radically inclusive place we envision in both word and in deed. There is an urgency to this work that I have never felt before in the same way. And I am actually truly sorry that it has taken me so long to recognize what has always been. Such is the scourge of being within the dominant paradigm. Lives are at stake here and have been for a long, long time. And it could not be more obvious today as we look at the data from those most impacted by COVID-19, as we look at the patterns of public shootings and incarceration rates among people of color, as we look at how the basic human rights to health care, family visitations, and benefits are denied to the trans community, as we watch the polar ice caps rapidly thawing, which will impact our most vulnerable species and humans first. Lives are at stake here in how we engage in a community. We are in a particular moment in time that calls us out of our comfort for the sake of the greatest of goods, literally for our collective survival. Now, I have to say this is a hard Sunday to be preaching virtually because I really wish I could feel your energy and experience, see in your faces and just get a sense of where this is landing for you. So I invite you into dialogue with me about this. But back to the sources. The decentering I chose for this summer is super explicit. I've taken apart our sources, and in this exploration, we will hear some of our familiar anchors, as well as new, more historically accurate configurations of our root religious traditions, and explicit additions of those voices that have remained on the margins of our religious tradition since its inception. Here's what we'll be exploring this summer. Next week, as I mentioned, it will be Christian teachings. Hardly marginalized, you might say. But for many people within Unitarian Universalism who are wounded from their Christian past, They can be unable to integrate the power of that religious tradition from which both Unitarianism and Universalism sprang up as heretical traditions. Then we'll dive into our UU heritage and history, honoring this free religious movement over time, with a particular focus on women within our history. It will be followed by direct experience, that essential source of our tradition. And next, we'll be talking about the sacred and challenging history of our LGBTQIA community, which expands our understanding of love and the beautiful diversity of humanity. Followed by that, we'll do the teachings of Dharmic, Indic, and Taoist traditions, which especially influenced the Transcendentalists. And then the history of Black and Brown lives within Unitarian Universalism, who have struggled for inclusion and gifted our religious tradition since its inception. Then we'll be doing the teachings of the monotheistic traditions of Islam and Judaism, which informed that notion of one God that has been historically, theologically central to Unitarianism, but largely forgotten in how we name our understanding of our tradition. And finally, humanist teachings. We will go to our humanist teachings, which are so foundational to our roots. Now, I do not consider myself a scholar or a theologian. I'm a human being who's trying to live my life with the best experience of everything I see around me. So I'd never suggest that these are the sources of our tradition. But what I'm trying to do here for us and for me is to open up our sources, to more fully include what has often been the null curriculum. And I was delighted, and I will say relieved, to learn at General Assembly that the UUA has also created a new commission that will be looking at the UU principles and sources as they're stated in the bylaws. It will be a long collaborative process of reworking them for these times, far grander than in scope than one lowly minister in Colorado can take on. But I'm so excited about that process and excited to bring that to you. The process of decentering may be uncomfortable for those who are used to being front and center, and for those who have not been in mutual relationships with people on the margins. But harm is being done by keeping things the way they are. Harm that leads even to death. So compare the discomfort of learning to prioritize another perspective, the discomfort of sharing the center, and sharing leadership and power in new ways. Compare it, if you can, to being systematically ignored. Compare it to daily intentional and unintentional microaggressions, the little jabs that devalue your worth over and over again. Compare it to needing to prove one's humanity over and over again. I'm ready to listen, to move over, to mess up, to change the way I experience the world and operate in the world for those who have been historically harmed by systemic oppressions. I'm ready to listen so that they may literally breathe a little easier and have their human dignity restored. This, to me, is essential to my theology, to my beliefs, to my core as a Unitarian Universalist. And it may not always be a comfortable ride, but the possibility of a truly transformed Unitarian Universalism that spills out into the world is too urgent a call to pass up. I hope you will join me. We can do this together. You are important to me. I need you to survive. May it be so.
Yes, may it be so. Each week we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives in this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. This week we share our plate with the Undocu Fund for COVID-19, sponsored by Philanthropies, a Longmont-based foundation that accompanies local leaders to improve their communities. Please give generously so that others may receive the care they need and experience hope. You may also use this time to answer this question in the chat. What are the sources that inspire your spiritual journey? They need not be sources that have been stated in this service.
So beautiful to read the sources of your inspiration. And now for the work of the fellowship and the work of Philanthropies and their Undocu Fund for COVID-19. Apologies for that incorrect slide. We offer our gratitude and our gifts.
And now we sing. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Now I invite us into our time of community connection, our time of sacred sharing. Don will remind you of how to let us know that you'd like to share. And when you do, whether it's by voice or by chat, please tell us your name and where you live. Briefly let us know what is in your heart today, and add your pronouns too, if you would. And then I will add a stone in our sacred waters on your behalf. Beloveds, in these deeply challenging times, let us be about the work of love and compassion, a love that transforms, an active love and an active hope, a hope for us and for those around us, a love that builds beloved community, that is radically inclusive, that extends out toward the excluded, the brokenhearted, and the weary, walking with, following, and moving over so that all might live more freely. Let that love be extended actively. Let us reach out with active caring for those who are most in need of support, even the virtual support that we can offer these days for people experiencing the fear of COVID-19, whether physically or just emotionally, the challenges that are coming up with this pandemic. For people who are in economic difficulties, again, because of the pandemic. For all the mental health issues that are arising. For people in unsafe home environments. Let us extend out our love into acts of caring, small and large. And let us also celebrate those birthdays and anniversaries and first steps that are also interwoven in these times. This is our calling, to be fully awake to all that is, to be present, to celebrate, and to do the work of building beloved community and caring for our earth. May it be so.
Peace and freedom is
I invite you to join me in saying our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Beloveds, let us go forth, ready to serve, rooted in our tradition and yet open to change. Let us go forth. There is important work to do, and we need one another. Blessed be. Amen.